the New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Hi folks, Paul Spain here. Welcome to this special episode of the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Today we're jumping in with three of the winners from the 2022 New Zealand High Tech Awards. We've also got a second episode coming on its way, which will have some more of the winners. Now this year at the NZ High Tech Awards Gala Dinner, it was the largest ever, attracting around 1,100 attendees on the night, including Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who highlighted the purpose-driven nature of the companies within the New Zealand tech sector and also the great opportunities that lie ahead for us. Now, I'd like to thank very much the organisers of the NZ High Tech Awards for including me at the gala dinner in Wellington. It was great to catch up with so many of our listeners and others from right across our incredible technology sector here in New Zealand. And of course, I must say many thanks to our incredible New Zealand Tech Podcast partners for their support making this show possible, and also their broader support for the New Zealand technology and innovation ecosystem. So thank you to 2 Degrees, Vodafone, Spark, HP, Gorilla Technology, Cyclone, and Aruba. All right, without further ado, let's jump straight in. Well, great to have you here, Graham Grant, CEO of Seequent. Thanks for joining the New Zealand Tech Podcast today.
Yeah, well, thanks, Paul. Really love to be here and appreciate the opportunity to come on for a chat.
Well, congratulations to yourself and the entire Seequent team as winners of PwC High Tech Company of the Year award at the New Zealand High Tech Awards on Friday night. How does that feel? How's that been received by the team?
Oh, look, so excited. I've had messages from all over the world. And of course here with our base here in New Zealand, and we had sent around on the simulcast, and it's actually a surprising number of people watched through the whole event. Bated breath as to whether we would take the big prize or not, and we did. So people were very excited, and although it's obviously the awards within a New Zealand context, everyone recognises that when you achieve something of this magnitude within a country, because they usually are within a country, it's a statement about the efforts of the entire team. It's not about what the New Zealand team does. It's a global team. And so it's a huge reward for everyone around the world.
Yeah, well done, well done. Well, the reason I wanted to have you on to have this chat is not only the award, but I think there's always so much going on within the tech sector, and sometimes we actually it might be a company of some renown and well known, which Seequent is, but not everyone knows what it is that you do. So I thought it'd be great to just to delve in and get a little bit of an update and insights on the business. So maybe we can start with that in terms of just a little bit about where Seequent came from a historical point of view, and where things are at now, Graham.
Sure. Well, I'll try and trace that snakes and ladders kind of history as quickly as I can. As you saw from the position on the night, we are a pure play software company. We work in a very specific domain, which is in the domain of the geosciences, which is how the earth works, and that's all about what happens underground. So that's the world we work in, and we could talk later about what markets and what it actually does. That's the general domain space we're in, which is so uncommon to most people. Therefore, the company is largely unknown to most New Zealanders, and would be very surprising if many people had heard of us. It actually was a spin out from another software or technology company in Christchurch that still exists, which was in the medical sciences space. And they had developed some very specific high-end mathematics for solving a particular problem in the medical space. That class of maths, if you will, was known to the resources industry, but had never been applied because it was computationally difficult with the computers of the day. The medical team cracked that, and so it found its way into the resources market as a test, really. It's a bit of a trial, and it worked. And so that became the genesis of the start of the product, the main product we sell today, our core platform, if you will. And that was way back just before 2003, 2004. The company sort of sold its first products in 2004. So it's not an old company, it's relatively new. And from that genesis, it grew and grew, self-funded, no sort of equity injections, no debt, and just grew within its means, and it's stabilized and developed that product set until it really started to hit the accelerator in sort of 2010, 11, 12. And through that period had separated from a company standpoint from the original founding company, and then progressively we've seen a period of sort of different equity owners coming into the business over time to where we are today, where in last year the business was sold to a large American NASDAQ listed software company. So it's been a 17 odd years of pretty constant rapid scaling, I would say.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive when we heard about the sale last year. What can you share with us on the numbers front?
So on the numbers front, it was in New Zealand dollar terms in the sort of 1.4 billion ballpark, at the time. So it was actually it was transacted in US dollars, so it was just a shade under 1.1 billion US dollars. That was a complete buyout by the American firm. It wasn't a partial buyout in any way, shape or form. And the company that acquired us was quite recently listed on the NASDAQ. They were a private family-owned firm up until 2020 and then listed on the NASDAQ in October 2020. So they're actually a relatively recent entrant to the private markets, albeit they're 35 years old as a firm. So that's the business of the time. We were then about 550 staff worldwide, something like that. We're now just pushing over 700.
Wow, so you're growing. You've grown quite rapidly, since that point. And you came into the business at what point, Graham?
So I arrived in early 2012. So we were about 40 people at that point in time. In fact, I'm staring at a photograph on my wall of the staff, and they were all here in New Zealand in one little building. In 2012, and I was based overseas, but I started with the firm in 2012. So I've been here just over 10 years. And Sean, the prior CEO, had joined a couple of years earlier than that. So I've been through the journey. I was predominantly overseas and moved back here to New Zealand in 2017 as we started to head into a new equity round where we brought on board the Cell KKR from the west coast of the US.
Great. And so, since you've been in the role as CEO, what have been the most interesting things? Obviously, this has been a pretty disruptive time over the last sort of couple of years with COVID. How's it played out? Because you've been growing pretty significantly as well during that period.
I'd say there's sort of three. There's lots of things that have happened in the last 12 months, but probably three things stand out. That we were going through a sales process from late 2020, and we formally closed in June of last year after OIO approval. So, big issue one was, the company being part of another large company with all of the change that comes with that. And anyone listening who's been through a large, company buyout by a much larger firm, 10 times our size, knows that introduces a lot of complication and challenges to how you operate your business, and that was something we've been working through for the last year. The second piece was alongside that sale process to Bentley Systems, we were acquiring other businesses at the same time. So through that whole period of a short number of months, we acquired 4 other technology companies at the same time. So we were already on track with those before our sale process, and we closed those last year. So bringing on board 4 very different businesses in different places around the world and needing to run through the integration of those whilst we were integrating ourselves into this parent, that was certainly a challenge. And then of course trying to keep focus and maintaining fast, organic growth through that period of change, it was tricky. It's been a really intense 12-month period, but in a way we're through the bulk of that, and now we're sort of resetting our direction going forward now that we've sort of settled down, if you will, under the new ownership structure.
Okay, gotcha. So, can you break down for us a little bit about the organisations that you work with? Who are your clients? What are the sectors that you work with?
Yeah, the client base is very broad, but I think it would be simpler to break it into four buckets. So um, we can think about, if we just think about it in terms of industry market verticals. So the company started in the mining industry, so resources was its home, and we've grown out in the resources industry to be, well north of 100 countries around the world now. And pretty much, if you can think of a large mining company's name, they'll be a customer. So that's
Wow.
that's the resources side, and that's across the whole scheme of mining, be it from precious, base metals, and so forth, industrial minerals. We're also in the civil markets, so civil infrastructure, so the world of surface and subsurface built structures, railways, tunnels, roads, dams, those sorts of things. So bringing the subsurface knowledge to infrastructure. We work in the energy markets. So we're known historically for our work in geothermal energy. Very early on in our history, we partnered with Contact Energy specifically, and they were greatly helpful to us, as was GNS, in adapting our software to the problem of extracting critical heat, steam and temperature from out of the ground in geothermal wells. And so we've become quite a formidable supplier of subsurface modeling products into the global geothermal industry. We touch over 50% of that market globally. And we have some exposure to the hydrocarbon markets, but somewhat limited. And then that's the sort of third vertical is energy. And when we think about energy, that's expanding into wind turbines and other aspects of energy markets. And fourthly is what we class as the environmental markets, and that's broadly in the field of water and in the field of contamination. So with the water, it's all about subsurface water, aquifers. Most of our towns and cities around the world are fed by aquifers. And in occasions like Auckland, it's obviously dams, above ground dams. But in the case of Canterbury, it's heavily dependent on subsurface aquifers. So modelling those aquifers, modelling the fluid flow of water through those aquifers and how you can manage them is one dimension. The other dimension is contamination. So when industrial contaminants, for example, make their way into the subsurface and begin to move through the groundwater, how do you predict the flow of those contaminants where they go? And some of those contaminants are chemical, and some of those contaminants, bizarrely, are explosives. So one of our fields of specialism is finding unexploded ordnances. Believe it or not, a large proportion of the ordnance dropped in continental Europe in World War II never went off, and it's still live. It's either in the ground or on the seafloor. And so when you're laying fibre optic cables, or you're laying gas pipelines, or you're trying to build a wind turbine offshore, you've got the problem of large bombs, unexploded bombs on the seafloor. So we can detect those things and have software to help them find them and remove them. And that can be for areas of conflict, or it can be remediation of old bombing ranges, as an example, where there'll be huge numbers of unexploded ordnances. So you can think about that in a sense as a solid contaminant, and we're trying to deal with that and bring safety to bear. So you can see we're in a whole range of end markets, and touch a lot of different types of businesses, both government and private, but essentially you could say we fall into those four industry verticals.
So can you tell us a little bit more around, what is your technology, do? Is it actually sort of is basically doing mapping below ground? And if so, how does it actually do that? How do you do
Exactly. That? In a way, yes. So most of our everyday experience is above ground mapping, right? So that could be in the form of a map, like on Google Maps, or it could be a satellite image. So hence the satellite layer of Google, or indeed you may have been familiar with GIS as a mapping system of the surface.
Sure. Yep.
Underground, you can't do that, but you still need to understand it. So you need to take sample information and then derive from that sample information what's actually going on. So there are lots of ways of sampling in the mining industry and in the energy industry. Typically, you're drilling holes with the drilling rig. So you'll drill a hole, a borehole, or a well in the case of an oil and gas or geothermal field, and you're sampling all of the material that comes out of that drill core to the bottom. And that could be 4 or 5 kilometers down. And you're sampling the rock types. How strong is the rock? Is it fractured? Is the fluid, is it permeable and is it moving through the rock? What's going on? Are there faults? If you're looking for metals, precious metals, what is the proportion of those precious metals found in the sample? What the software does is take all of that information, which is, I'll just describe it as it's spatially unstructured information. So it sits in 3D space, but it's completely unstructured. And so it joins all that together and creates a representation of what we believe to be underground. And based on that representation, you can then start to make decisions. You might progress the decision to build a mine. You might inform how a railway line could progress through some very unstable territory. You might predict what the steam flow will be from a geothermal well and whether that steam flow is sufficient to power the power generation plant that you're about to build above ground. That's what the software is doing.
That's great. And is this a space where there is a lot of competition? What does the market look like for you?
There's always competition of forms in any software market. The world we live in is slightly different, where there has been traditional methods of how to undertake that activity. So if you like, digitizing historical manual processes, what we've tried to do is come and transform how that work's done by applying smart modeling, smart mathematics, smart algorithms to it to speed the whole process up, make it way more intuitive, make it easy to communicate, and produce far higher quality outcomes, which is what the result of this core software did that we've built here. And so there are what I'd say kind of competitors, but we tend not to have head-to-head competitors because our software both operates differently and we play a different game in terms of the strategic model that how we approach the market.
Sounds like a good position to be in, Graham. Now, where to from here? What does the future look like, and how much of a commitment is there to to the New Zealand base going forward? Obviously, there's you've got not just local staff, but how does that look? It's been reasonably hard in this last couple of years to recruit locally. Because we probably haven't had enough people to go around.
Yeah, well, the commitment, we have to look at that second question of commitment to New Zealand from the lens of Bentley Systems, the new owner, and they're extremely committed to what we do. They set out for us to operate as a form of standalone business, if you will. We retain our brand, we retain our identity. And why do we do that? Because we're a very different business than the core parent, if you will. Like, we operate in a very different space, an adjacent, accretive space, but we operate in a different space. And they didn't want to disrupt that momentum or the positional advantage we have that we've developed over all these years. So as a result of that, there's huge commitment to us as a unit of the company, if you will, and for us to continue to advance at speed in our chosen strategic direction, what we had developed over the years, and we will continue to execute on that. So no problems there, and if anything, they just want us to go faster. So that's great. In terms of so where to from here for the company, there's vast opportunity in front of us. I mean, in a sense, as you rapidly scale and transform things, performance and transformation begets new opportunity. And so we've got massive white space in front of us. It's just how fast can we get there? And I would say that's across all of the spaces we're in, because there's massive, mega trends globally, which are, if you like, driving these industries. But all of those mega trends driving those industries just mean you need a technological response. And we're in the box seat to deliver that technological response. So if I just give you a couple of examples, just to bring that to life. So you would have observed, the world lurching towards, for example, electrification and transition energy, and the desire for, so I'll say flippantly, everyone to drive an EV car. Problem, there aren't the mineral resources to support that level of progress. They're just not there at the rate at which they're being produced today. So we need a huge technological support for the mining industry to work out how it can find enough lithium, enough copper, enough cobalt, zinc, and all of the rare earth and critical minerals that are required to build your cell phone, as an example. So we have a huge disconnected supply and demand market, and technology is the only response to that. On the infrastructure side, if you look around, particularly the Western world, a lot of the Western world's major infrastructure was built post-World War II, and it's aging, it's getting old. And through those decades, we've seen populations, although the global population will grow, stabilize, and somewhat reduce given all its current projections, it has urbanized, and the urbanization has created massive pressure on both resources and infrastructure. It needs to be rebuilt. So to rebuild it efficiently and effectively, you need to know what's going on underground. So that's a massive, huge mega trend that is that's just happening globally, and we can't avoid it. And then as all of that happens, it's putting pressure on scarce resources like water, as an example. So we need to be great stewards of our precious water resources, and to do that, we need science. And so there's the water piece. And oh, by the way, on the energy side, if you take away hydrocarbons, you need baseload energy. Where do you get baseload energy from? We don't get it from solar panels, and you don't get it from wind turbines. But geothermal is a great shout. New Zealanders are leaders in globally geothermal. That's an obvious place to go because the earth is just a great big hot thing, and you can pull heat out of most places in the earth and heat homes, heat businesses, dry things, pump, feed glass houses, generate electricity. So I'm skipping across all of those to say that in many of these huge big global mega trends, the geosciences as it relates to understanding the subsurface is actually the key to unlock the way forward.
Wow, that's pretty exciting. You're in a great space there, Graham. So just as we wrap up, anything else you'd like to add, whether it's highlighting areas you might be recruiting in, or anything else as we finish up?
I think two things I would say is that the first thing is very much on my mind is that if there were to be younger people listening, and I don't know what the demographic is of your podcast, but we really need to encourage our younger people, and I mean school kids, to consider the sciences, consider the natural sciences. We've got a huge mismatch in the flow rate of talented young people into the geosciences versus the demand out there. So really get them thinking about contributing to the sciences, because that has a massive effect, positive effect on the globe. And to consider tech. Tech is not, to be blunt, that front of mind for many of our really talented school kids, and it should be. Tech is an industry, and also tech is a vocation. So I think that's something that I think we really need to double down on here in New Zealand and build that up, because it's so valuable to the economy. From our perspective, we're growing fast, and we will continue to grow extremely fast. And so we're always interested in purpose-minded folks working in and around the technology industry who just want to be part of something where their fingers are in changing the world. And if they're into that, and to applying themselves to something of global scale and purpose, we want to hear from you, so give us a call.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time, Graham Grant, and congratulations to the whole Seequent team on the win as the PwC High Tech Company of the Year for 2022.
Thanks so much, and thanks for inviting us on.
Great. Thanks, Graham. Clare Bradley, welcome to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's lovely to be here. Kia ora, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Kia ora. And look, thank you for taking the time, but congratulations on the win on Friday night at the NZ High Tech Awards, the Callaghan Innovation High Tech Komepeni Māori Aotearoa Māori Company of the Year winner. So that's it's very, very exciting. Can you maybe start with a little bit of a background of Agrisea? This is a company that's been around for quite some time, but seems to have a real history of doing very innovative things, and you're very much at the forefront of tech right now.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think we're still kind of coming down from the elation and celebration of Friday night. It was really, a bit of a win to get seaweed and high tech in the same sentence. The seaweed sector around Aotearoa is just kind of at the forefront, starting to kind of build and take off and scale. So, to kind of have that recognized as high technology, or applications from seaweed as high technology, was a win for the sector, I think. And in terms of Agrisea, it was started some 26 years ago by my husband's whānau, who actually were school teachers originally and discovered seaweed use mainly for growing plants and soils. And they did this for their own home garden primarily, and it kind of grew. Initially it was a famous rosarian trying to save an old rose in Morrinsville, and it did. And then the Parnell Rose Gardens wanted it, and then commercial kiwi fruit growers wanted it. It's just kind of built quite organically. They were such visionaries, Jill and Keith. They really saw the potential of seaweed for Aotearoa as an industry, but also for its part to play in our ecological restoration, both in our waters and on land. So it's been quite the journey. We're family-run, family-owned, multi-generational. Our children are involved. Our grandparents along the way have been involved, and so to be recognised in this way is hopefully an encouragement to any other whānau out there trying to make headwind against swimming upstream in a new and challenging sector. Hopefully it gives them encouragement and support to carry on.
Look, I think these stories definitely do. So, I think that's what I enjoy so much about hearing the insights and the stories of what makes great businesses. And I'm definitely keen to hear more. So tell us a little bit about that the role really of how seaweed sort of compares to the other options that especially I guess it's especially the agricultural sector have in terms of chemicals and other things, and how much difference that makes.
Yes, and primarily our markets have been agricultural and horticulture sectors here in New Zealand and some offshore, and the role of those products as biostimulants has been using and harnessing natural microbes and feeding them to enable and encourage plant growth, vitality, and health. So they can be used alongside our standard fertilizer range, and in some ways in replacement to reduce the input of synthetic fertilizers, which are often based with high carbon footprints and things that kind of add to the challenges, I think, from some of our agricultural and horticulture sectors. But this award in particular is focused on products we're making from our waste stream. So we make biostimulants, and we have a leftover residue that we were already circular. We used to put it into salt blocks and animal feed and things that were still kind of lower value. And really, we want to see seaweed as a high value, unique sector for Aotearoa. And so our responsibility is then trying to get really high value. So from this waste stream, we partnered with the expertise at Scion, one of the Crown Research Institutes, who are up on stage with us and have been just an absolute cornerstone part of our journey. And they've developed this incredible mechanical technique to extract nanocellulose. So that nanocellulose and these hydrogels made from the nanocellulose are renewable and replacements for petroleum-based polymers in a range of products. And they can include anything from burn dressings, biomedical engineering, drug delivery, cosmetics, and agriculture, and electronics. I mean, who knew you could put seaweed in electronics, right? Like, it's just nuts. It's insane. Wow. So, for us, while we've been focused in that restoration of te taio in our land and waterways, even better if we can create high value petroleum replacements from seaweed as well.
Wow, I'm blown away how many possibilities there are. That's really cool. And so, tell us about this partnership with Scion. Scion is I think they're a Crown entity with a long history of innovation. And in fact, my family owes I guess a lot to Scion, because when my parents walked off walked off the boat. However many decades ago, my father turned up and knocked on Scion's door, and they gave him a
Oh,
job as
wow.
a computer programmer. Bit of a connection
Amazing.
there. But how did that come about? How were you able to to link that up? And how long did it sort of take to bring that connection
Yeah.
together?
It was actually kind of by accident that we met the people at Scion. We've worked with a range of different universities and CRIs in different parts of our business. But on this particular occasion, Tani and I were speaking as kind of up and comers at this Matariki X, which celebrates Māori entrepreneurship. And we happened to sit next to these two scientists at dinner, and they were telling us about making crystals from seaweed. And we thought they were nuts. We didn't really, kind of think much of it. We thought, I think you're, great idea, but how does it have legs? I mean, seaweed, you can make lots of it, right? We'll see. And so we got to know these people, and we got talking more and more about what it is that we could potentially create together, but also why we want to create it together. So that's really important for Agrisea and in terms of aligning our values and vision and partnerships. They were really clear that they wanted to do amazing, awesome science, and we were really clear that we wanted to take the science to the world to help make an impact. So we're really clear on where it was that we both played. So great ideas, they're easy to come by, a lot harder to put into action. So there's a fair bit of grunt and mahi and work that's gone in from, all of the team as a collective. But we've always just supported each other, continued to encourage each other. And we ended up getting a Smart Ideas grant from MB to help fund some of that initial research. We then ended up with a Bioprocessing Alliance grant, which deals with waste streams. And we're now building the world's only seaweed nanocellulose hydrogel plant here in Paeroa. So we've been able to license that technology that Scion have developed and to come together in a partnership to achieve what we want to together.
That's great. Now, you're based in Paeroa. This is a place I've travelled through many times, but wasn't aware that it's was home to Agrisea, and obviously it works well from your perspective as a base.
Yeah, I think initially, like any bootstrap startup, it was about kind of cheaper rent, good floor space, main trunk lines and things like that. But actually the community of Paeroa have been hugely supportive of the work we do. We've got incredible people even moving into our area, some fantastic brains. And also you're an hour to Hamilton, an hour 10 to Tauranga. Sometimes it feels much longer with the traffic, and then an hour 20 to Auckland. So, you've kind of got this golden triangle to pull on so many different expertise. And we ended up buying the next Silverfern Farms works, which is, we've got 22 acres here. So we've got a really nice big site, big buildings. And like I said, it's easy to get to ports for export or to pull in expertise.
And talk us through that export aspect. What is the opportunity here from an export perspective?
So seaweed is hugely abundant around the world. It's coming up and creating stinks on beaches in the Caribbean. None of the people on holiday want to be surrounded by smelling rotten seaweed. There's lots of people kind of coming up with ideas of what to create from it. And this hydrogel and nanocellulose crystals is but just one of those ideas. So there is the opportunity to export this technology to where resources are around the world. We currently already export goods in terms of our biostimulants, primarily into Italy, where they use it for grape growing for viticulture, grows the best grapes in the world for winemaking, but then also to America, Canada, and Australia for a product that helps gut parasites and honeybees, all out of seaweed.
And how big is your team? Because it seems to me there's a lot of complexity. There's, it's not just one simple product that you've got going to one market, you're juggling a lot,
Yeah.
there,
And
Claire.
sometimes, people see that as a negative because they say, just focus on one thing. However, with seaweed being such a new sector and opportunity, we really have to be kind of, my mother-in-law has always called it titiro whānui, or looking long and wide. So that if we get too narrow, we can miss out on opportunity. But not only that, the breadth of our business gives us a lot of resilience, especially when we've been reliant on something like the agriculture sector, which, as we know, has many highs and many lows. So if we have diversity in our income, we've got a really resilient and robust business, which I think stands for the fact that 26 years later, we're still here, and really we feel like we're only just getting started.
Yeah, that's exciting. And how do you find the people that you need to have in the business, and how do you develop people? How does that work
So
for you?
we've got a team of around 35 full-time employees. We also work with our remote coastal communities at the seaweed gathering part. We also start to partner in that end of the value chain around growing seaweed, both on land as a bioremedial tool and in the ocean. So we've got partnerships kind of at every level of our business. And often we, create partnerships and then work with them in a more meaningful way, or they may become employees in some instances. So our breadth of knowledge within our team is incredible. We've got aquaculturalists through to biochemists through to incredible, passionate people around the farming sector who are knowledgeable and can help farmers be more sustainable. We've just built an incredible team of really passionate individuals who want to see the same things as us. We want to make an impact on the world.
That's what it's all about. That's awesome. And look, this is an award that recognises Agrisea as the Māori Company of the Year. I'm curious what your thoughts are in terms of how we're doing as a nation in terms of supporting Māoridom and supporting entrepreneurs in this area, and bringing more people through into roles that maybe traditionally we didn't see so many Māori involved
I think,
in.
Speaking to Sir Ian Taylor and Hemi Rolliston from Scion and Grant Stracker, who kind of got together. I think Grant's comment was, there are more Māori serving on the bar than in these awards, and they set about trying to change that. So having leaders in the sector like those three has been hugely beneficial for Agrisea. We just kind of look to some of the values in Te Ao Māori around kaitiakitanga, around whakawhanaungatanga, building relationships, looking after our resources. And, from a business perspective, those things have started to be talked about climate mitigation and wellness and growing your people. I mean, those things have been in Indigenous cultures forever. So it's really neat now starting to bridge some understanding and go, I can really see why that is hugely valuable for the future of our economy and for the future of our environment. We find it tough, it's, we don't necessarily have those values written all over our website. It's more important for us to just be who we are and live those values than just talk about them.
Yeah, that's inspiring. Thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add today, Claire?
No, I think I think I said in the beginning, for us and for the seaweed sector, putting seaweed in the same sentence as high technology is a real win. And if I reflect on that, the Prime Minister's statement of technology being not only the best in the world from New Zealand, but making sure we're the best for the world. So for Agrisea, we're really committed to making sure that everything we develop is the best for the world.
I love it. That's great. Well, thank you very much, and congratulations again, Clare Bradley, and of course the whole team at Agrisea for an incredible win. And we're really, looking forward to what's ahead. And it sounds like, as you said, it sort of feels a little bit like the beginning. So that suggests to me you've got your sights set on many exciting adventures ahead. So we look forward to following that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today, Paul. Kia ora.
Well, welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Great to have you here, Milan Cooper.
Thanks for having me.
Now, look, big congratulations. Yourself and the team at First AML just come away with winning the KiwiBank Most Innovative High-Tech Service Award at NZ High Tech Awards, which is, great achievement.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really pleased with it. It's great to get that recognition.
Yeah, so look, there'll be a lot of people that will know a little bit about First AML. No doubt there'll be some that don't know much about you at all. So maybe we could start a little bit at the beginning. How did First AML come about, and what are the foundations for the business?
Yeah, sure. Well, just to start with, AML stands for anti-money laundering, and it's a concept and started in the banking and financial sectors. And it requires, during customer onboarding, for various checks to be completed. And how our business got started was really with my two co-founders, Chris Kager and Bjorn Baden. And they were working in banking, and they were relationship managers, and they were really frustrated with how long it would take to onboard new customers into the bank. And at the heart of this was the AML rules, and they required quite detailed diligence be conducted on customers. And what that means in this context is digging through corporate structures, finding directors and shareholders of these customer entities, and then verifying their identity. And so AML is a very administrative sort of complex process to be conducted, and that's where we first observed the problem. And what we do now, the focus of First AML is around streamlining customer onboarding, particularly focused on the AML requirements.
Yeah, that's a change. The anti-money laundering rules that we have today compared to where we were, I don't know how long back now. It's just how many years is it since the legislation's been in that requires all of this extra effort to be put in to verify people?
Yeah, it started in New Zealand in 2013, and then at that time it was just the banks and financial institutions that had to comply. What happened in 2018 was that new legislation was introduced, which required the legal sector, the accounting sector, and real estate agencies to comply as well. And they're really some of the customer verticals that we really targeted at the start, and we're helping with great success, because they weren't equipped like the large banks with huge resources to put in place robust processes around customer onboarding and AML compliance. And so many of our customers are in that legal, accounting, and real estate sector, as well as financial services.
Yeah, it's certainly there was a big problem there. I know my own experience. If you're a director of a business, there's sort of certain scenarios with interactions with banks, and then having been through a property sale in the last year. And yeah, for me, I remember being one particular bank, and they had one way of handling an aspect of it, and there was another bank that I needed to go through an AML verification with, and their process was completely different, and it was just seemed nuts how at odds with each other they were. And so I think anything to bring simplicity through, but also we talk a lot about data privacy and cybersecurity. That's kind of, I think, another area that people aren't that comfortable with. Just just click this link and send your information off to this some firm. That side I imagine is a challenge. You must have to work to build confidence in your ability to keep people's data under lock and key.
Absolutely, and to your first point, you've described a situation where you were put through AML processes multiple times, selling houses or opening bank accounts or what have you, and the painful thing for you as a consumer is that you are being asked to hand over your passport and perhaps if you're using a trust or other structures, trust deeds and source of wealth and source of funds and these things over and over becomes quite intrusive to you as a consumer. And secondly, you've highlighted the risk around, are you being onboarded by secure means? And so are people asking you to send documents over email, which is not very secure, or over other unsecure means? And that presents a risk to you and your data. And so, at First AML, we're really focused on these problems and solving these problems. And the first thing I mentioned was around how can we avoid you having to repeatedly hand over your PII, your personal identifiable information, over and over to all of these different professional services firms or real estate agencies or banks. Because each time you do that, it presents a risk, right? And so our approach with First AML is to create a network that we can facilitate, and with your consent, we can securely pass on some of these AML records to the party that needs them, rather than them being fired around willy-nilly over email. And so that's one important aspect of what we do, and something which makes our model quite unique, because it saves you a lot of time as the consumer and frustration, and ultimately it gets the job done in a compliant manner and much faster with less friction for everyone involved. The second aspect, I think it's important to highlight is, we take the privacy and security aspects so seriously. It's just critical for our business, and so we invest heavily in information security management. And we've invested to obtain ISO 27001 certification, and these things are just critical for our business. Building trust with our users and the consumers who ultimately go through our processes.
Yeah. So, in terms of the establishment of First AML, when did you start?
We started in 2018. Yeah, so we started around the time where the new legislation came in. And this was 1st of July 2018, and we had our first law firm customer sign up a couple of days before. So it was great timing, and we were off and running from July 2018. So
that initial sort of period of getting started and getting some runs on the board, what did that look like? How hard was that to be getting customers, to be getting funding?
Yeah.
What did that piece look like?
Yeah, I think we were quite lucky in that we were able to build an MVP at very low cost that got the job done in the early days, and it allowed us to really prove that we had a market here. We had customers clambering to sign up.
That's great.
And it was fantastic. And I would say we had good timing as well. And I think good timing is great in entrepreneurship, because we had all of a sudden a bunch of new customer segments who needed a solution, needed to comply with AML. And so a combination of putting an effective MVP in place and good timing was what got us off and running. And then from there, it was easy to attract investment, and we've been quite lucky to be able to raise funds from venture capitalists pretty easily. And that journey started with the Ice House here in New Zealand in early 2019. So it's sort of when we're 6 or 7 months post initial launch. And following that, we've got now investors in the US and in Australia and in Europe, and we've done 4 rounds of capital raising in total now.
So that capital raising piece must have been pretty essential for you in terms of you seem to have been moving at a really fast clip.
Yeah.
And I guess in some fields you talked about that timing aspect. In some areas that can make a real difference, others not so much. But I imagine this is something where you've had to move pretty quick in order to find your position in the market, develop your technology.
That's right, yeah. And New Zealand, it was a bit of a land grab in 2018 and 2019 as these new segments needed solutions. And yeah, we've been wanting to grow fast, and you need capital to grow fast, and in the early days especially. But it's also very expensive undertaking to build technology, as we all know, and so we've built up to an engineering team of over 30 now. And some folks in our product team as well, and that you need capital to build up those teams that quickly. To do that organically is very difficult and takes more time. So we want to take on the world. We're very ambitious. We've now launched in Australia and the UK, and yes, it helps to be well funded to move at this pace.
Yeah. So what have you raised so far in terms of capital?
Total 41 million New Zealand dollars, yeah. And most recently, and the majority of that was the $30 million Series B in October 2021. And super happy to partner with Blackbird Ventures, who led that round, and welcome Sam Wong from Blackbird Ventures onto our board, who's just been an amazing help to the company so far.
That's great.
Yeah.
So where to from here? You seem to be, not just focusing on New Zealand. You've very much got those international ambitions. So, what are you seeing as the challenges as you sort of spread your wings, as it were?
Yeah. Look, there are some natural challenges with operating in 3 markets and having teams on the ground in 3 markets. And so that's been a bit of a learning curve for us, and lots of work to do to get our global teams really in sync. And yeah, we're really excited about the markets we're in and helping customers in those markets. And quite recent into the UK, but it's the value proposition we have is landing really well there. And so look, AML is just such a pain point for firms, and we're just trying to get better and better and improve our product and deliver more features to our customers so that they, really getting more and more value out of it. So yeah, just continued investment in our product and our and how we're helping our customers is the main focus for the next couple of years, and obviously to just continue growing in those core markets.
Yep. And so going into a new market, like the UK, you need to have people on the ground. I'm picking to a degree there.
Yeah.
You got time zone challenges, and you're certainly not the first into the market. So quite a different scenario than New Zealand, right? So how you're tackling those things?
So we are lucky in that we have a founding group who are quite mobile, and so Beon has been happy to move around a bit, and he's moved to Sydney to launch Australia a year and a half ago, and now he's moved to London. And I think having that founder on the ground in market, particularly when they're a sales leader like Beon, is super useful, and there's no substitute for getting those key people on the ground and making sure that the DNA from the company is really embedded in the new team that's being formed in that market. Another thing that we've done effectively is we've made the correct investment in the UK. So we haven't just dipped our toe in the water with 1 or 2 salespeople, which you run a risk of them becoming sort of a single point of failure and really not knowing if it's them or if it's the market. We've launched with 16 salespeople in total, and we are able to get such good feedback about if this is working or not. And I was quite pleased to get some validation from some of sort of the market entry experts that NZTE has connected us to around this sort of the correct level of investment in a new market to really give it a good go.
Yeah.
Not just dip your toe in and really not be sure whether it's going to be successful or not. So I think that's been a good learning, and I'm pleased with how we've approached that.
That's excellent. That's great. If people are interested in finding out a little bit more, where do they look? And are you on the lookout for particular skills, particular type of people at the moment?
Yeah, we 100% are. We're always looking for top talent, and big thing for us is we want to find people who want to be part of an exciting journey. We are. One analogy I'm using at the moment is we're trying to climb Mount Everest, and we want to find people that are excited to be on that type of journey. It's not a walk in the park being in a high growth startup. It's not sort of place you come just to work a 9 to 5 and clock in and clock out. And so if there's any listeners out there that are wanting to be part of something really exciting and find a place to really advance your career quickly, those are the sort of people we're looking for across any field, really. If you want to know more, you can visit firstaml.com and visit our careers page. We're very excited about the journey ahead and just making this another iconic tech company to come out of New Zealand and really follow in the footsteps of Xero.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and definitely wish you all the best in the next phases of the journey.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations again on your win at the NZ High Tech Awards, and certainly we'll look forward to hearing more about First AML in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul.
All right, thanks, Milan.
Cheers.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening in. It's Paul Spain signing out. We will catch you on our second special episode focused on the NZ High Tech Awards for 2022. And of course, a special thank you to our NZ Tech Podcast partners for their support. Thank you, 2 Degrees, Vodafone, Spark, HP, Gorilla Technology, Cyclone, and Aruba.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.